Hello there, and a very warm welcome to another edition of The Beam. I'm Victor Matthias. Now, in view of the purchase of microblogging site Twitter by billionaire businessman Elon Musk and Parler by Kanye West, also known as Ye, both for reasons along the lines of free speech and expression of emotion, the debate about what defines these and where the line should be drawn has once again been brought to the fore. On the program today, we will try to make sense of what the next phase of Twitter will look like after the purchase by Musk, where the line should be drawn with free speech, and also take a look at laws governing the use of the internet. Of course, has been the trending topics in the past 2 weeks, so we'll just go on with the program. But we're now joined by Taribi Alebiosu. She is the founder of Q Shop Tech Inc. She joins us right here in the Lagos studio. We also have joining us via Zoom Ibukun Adeni, he's co-founder at Erandla, and also Olushola Amushon, who is the co-founder at Vesti. All right, again, thanks for joining us on the show. So, what does this mean, for Twitter at this point in time?
Well, thanks for having me on the show, Victor. It means a couple of things. So, I think every other day or every hour, whatever, there's a new Twitter headline. They've fired half the staff. They're introducing this. So, first instinct for me is too much too soon. I feel like Elon should take a bit of time to, stay in the organization a bit, understand some things from the inside before he starts to make such sweeping changes.
Yeah.
Especially where it comes, what everybody has been talking about is this blue tick and paying for the blue tick. Should we pay for the blue tick? It could work depending on how it's implemented. So if it's implemented in the sense of, okay, if you want to be verified, maybe there's an application fee that you pay, and maybe that's the fee.
Yeah.
Yes, because there is some work that goes into verifying that you're a real person. But if it's just any and everybody can pay for a blue tick, then I think it kind of negates the entire point of the blue tick
in the first place. Yeah. All right, let's quickly hear from Olushola Musan, who is joining us via Zoom. Shola, business-wise, Taribi just alluded to the fact that the money that will be paid eventually, before that blue tick now is given, or perhaps maybe for those who already have the blue ticks existing. But business-wise, what does this make for the company?
Business-wise, needless to say, this is a very clear pathway to monetization. Think about the fact that, as at my last check, there were maybe less than 1 million, verified people compared to like the number of people that are actually on Twitter. So for an entrepreneur like Elon who thinks about, SaaS model, who thinks about subscription model, it's just a simple way. If you throw that out, there's always been the disparity between the haves and the have-nots on Twitter. And the fact that a lot of people would be interested in Twitter Blue, as it's called, is definitely a clear marker that it will shoot up revenue numbers for the organization. And needless to say, there are other components that need to be in place. If confidence drops, about how the organization is going to go or how things are going to go with the entirety of the company, there can be concerns about whether that is a sustainable idea. But overall, if you open that today and it's live in many of the countries, essentially you can tell that that's going to be millions in revenue for them from like day one. And continually, if they continue to demonstrate the value, as you know, Elon is a very intelligent person, except that he's also very controversial. So ultimately, if he gets his balance and the equilibrium, the issue of verification is actually a different conversation entirely. We have heard of people who actually got themselves verified, who got the blue tick and were still, peddling things and were not actually, doing what they're supposed to do on Twitter. So the conversation around whether or not this is going to like make it easy for anybody and anybody to be able to like pass fake news is truly a major concern. But ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, all they need to do is to define another protocol for basically determining what is true and just democratize, which is what Elon is all about, this whole idea of the blue tick.
Yeah. All right, so I'll come back to you in a bit again. Let's also quickly hear from Ibukun Adeni. It's a good thing Olushola made mention of, democracy, the free world, free speech and all of that, which has also come into question. A lot has happened, from Trump, being booted out, President Buhari's tweets being deleted, last year, and also now, Ye's recent comment. So free speech now, where do we draw the line, Ibukun? Looking at the fact that, you want to democratize everything, so to speak.
Yeah, let me first start from the beginning of the issue, right? The reason why even the purchase of Twitter by Elon Musk was even very, very important at the time, and the reason why he made that decision is because of a law called Section 230 that Donald Trump was trying to repeal. Now, this is a law that initially, when it was written to protect companies like Twitter against content that their users are putting online. So Twitter somehow has like immunity. So if somebody uses Twitter to communicate information about terrorism or whatever, Twitter cannot be liable for that. Now, so it was a very, very innocent bill at the beginning, and it made a lot of sense. Now, on the long run, if you look at the way the world has gone, right, a lot of things are happening in America now that foundationally were against even why the country America, United States of America, was even founded initially, which is like too much oversight. Now we have a lot of corporate oversight, without responsibility, and like Twitter being able to remove the president, and Twitter being able to influence elections in the capacity in which they influenced the past American election. Where if somebody says something, they can decide what is fake news and what is not fake news, and sometimes they are not always correct. So that's where the issue started from. Now, so Donald Trump actively tried to repeal this law, but of course, anything that especially when it comes to repealing a law, it has to go through legislation, and the process can be cumbersome, right? Now, in the interim, someone like Elon Musk, being an independent, he put his money where his mouth is, and said, you know what, I'm going to buy this company and I'm going to clean it up. If I cannot even clean up Facebook, I cannot clean up the rest. This Twitter, that is sort of like the de facto public forum for most political discussions nowadays, right? He wants to go in there and make it, democratize it as much as possible, let everybody feel some sense of inclusiveness, and not let one camp determine what is morality, technically define morality, So that's why Elon Musk first did that in the first place, So it's a good news for a lot of right-wing politicians in the United States. Is fantastic news for them.
All right. So again, I'll come back to you. But Taribi, you were nodding your head. I was trying to understand. Was it, in concurrence, to what Olushola and Ibukun said? But especially in terms of democratization, what's your, how do you think? Do you think he should have taken it a different perspective?
So, I mean, it's democratization and all that. It sounds great. It's where we should go, but there also needs to be balance. So there's one thing that needs to happen first is we need to clearly distinguish between moderation and censorship. Okay? Now, it sounds great. It's idealistic to say, oh, everybody should be able to say what they want to say. But unfortunately, some actions actually lead to like real world consequences. So where does a social media platform step back and say, you know what, this is none of my business. Say anything you want to say, irrespective of how offensive it is, versus jump in and say, I think this is getting out of control. I don't think any platform could ever have that perfect balance. So there would always be some degree of moderation. Some people may see it as being censored, but it would always happen. More importantly, I'm looking at Twitter as a business. If we take out the, should everybody be able to say what they want to say?
Yeah.
If we are now on a platform where literally anyone can say what they want to say, how great of an experience is that going to be for people? Why would people want to pay to be on that platform? I think that's a bigger question. So yes, all these things sound great on paper. There are millions, billions of users, they will pay. But why will they pay? So if I come and left, right, and center, I'm saying the N-word, I'm saying all sorts of things that are offensive.
What's not? Yeah, exactly. So, Molusha, you tried to say something?
Yeah, Elon is not saying, Elon and the entire new management of Twitter are not saying that moderating is going to end. Neither are they saying that certain policies are going to be completely removed.
Yeah.
Essentially, what is still considered as, abusive language, abusive content is not going to change anytime soon within the frame of the reference that they're talking about. They just don't want to make sure, I think people can really nail this, they just don't want to have a situation where, like, a certain political group or a certain idealistic group can determine what's going to happen, to the rest of the free world. Essentially, the whole concept of the free world is for essentially a group of people to be able to organize themselves around certain ideologies.
Yeah.
And whenever you begin to put restrictions to that, you begin to have issues around what should really be the boundaries of each person's expression. So I mean, if you still continue, no matter what, whether it's under Elon Musk's Twitter or under Jack Dorsey's Twitter, if you create abusive content, like naturally, there are certain things that are going to come off against you. What is really central to this right now for someone like Elon is that if this is a company that is supposed to live up to his ideals as a commercial entity, this is capitalism. This is the 21st century. This is the United States of America. It is not some UN, platform. It is Twitter. It is supposed to be a company that will serve a purpose. And central to that mission is that, for example, I mean, look at it. Think about it. I was even shocked to know that Twitter had only 7,000 employees. Like, this is a company that had the potential of like Facebook and had the potential of like all the other organizations when it started, but it just didn't get enough great leadership from a business standpoint. So there will continue to be pressure from all the corners where it should come to make sure that Elon doesn't go out of hand and to make sure that Twitter doesn't go out of hand. But what is critical right now is that such platforms have been, just set up to some other people's advantages either too. And so I'm not really saying that, we will not allow anybody to be able to like peddle terrorism, peddle this, peddle that. Even under Elon Musk Twitter, there is still going to be some form of moderation. There is still going to be all those policies around abusive speech, hate speech are still there. But you won't be able to just remove an head of state who essentially, or a president who essentially has his own views. Like you can say, okay, this is what can be done. You can say this tweet can be this. You can say, but you can essentially just say, oh, for a platform that people should use, you would just make rules or make especially when it's coming from other circles. Like, this is not just something that happened within Twitter. By some people, that you can call it conspiracy theory if you like. Like, it actually comes from some groups of people who have brought big tech together and continue to want to make big tech responsible to their own. So again, many of the things they did were a little like what you will call trying to put up the fire after it had happened. A lot of things, like, there were no specific guidelines around what could happen to a produce or what exactly could happen, to a user who was doing that kind of thing. Inciting violence, creating any form of, things that can create harm or physical harm or any kind of harm to any group, even in the case of Ye's comments that are anti-Semitic, should not be given any grounds, actually should not be allowed. And essentially rules should be created around that. But making it that this person, has to be, taken off the platform entirely, not allowed to come back, suspended indefinitely, is still like, it doesn't contribute to the values of the free society we're trying to create. I've argued with people that democracy might not necessarily be the best system if you are somebody who is not okay with the opinion of a fool. But if you are okay with like the opinion of everybody and you understand that it is a system, that governs the ideas of a people, for a people, by that people, then essentially you shouldn't be worried that somebody has an idea that is contrary to yours. That in itself shouldn't make you feel insecure.
All right, very well. Let me come back to you again. So we're looking at the whole drama around it. You made mention of staff being fired, and all of I mean, so some would think it's a business move, so to speak now. But I mean, incidentally, they filed a lawsuit. And so I'm just thinking, what could be the next step?
So I wouldn't say that they shouldn't have fired people. Maybe the timeline was a bit premature. I think that's more my view. I think it was really early. Like, I mean, this is what, less than a week, 2 weeks, and you fire, you make a decision that affects over 3,000 people. I think it could have been a little more thought out.
Yeah.
They may still have ended up there. It may have taken them a year to get there. I understand that there's immediate pressure to be, profitable and increase their revenue lines and keep their costs down. But you also have to think about what that singular action does to the morale of the existing staff. What happens where you're letting go of key people who you may end up needing in 9 months, then you start the whole process to look again. I don't necessarily say it's wrong. I just think the timing was completely off.
Yeah. All right, let me get Ibukun's take on this. Ibukun, in terms of, the quick fix, I want to call it a quick fix, firing of staff, do you think a different approach should have been taken in terms of, restructuring the company?
So the thing is, this is why I love America. This is why I love the United States of America. Like, this is how they fix their issues, right? It's a free society. There can be problems. but capitalism always comes and solves the problem
Right.
at the end of the day. So we look at a situation when we had a similar issue in Nigeria, where there was like a ban or something from our own president. Look at how our president responded, right? It was very decisive, because of the kind of country Nigeria is. So the president has all the power to be able to save himself, right? But Donald Trump didn't have that. But alternatively, what did they do? They bought up the company. The company has to make money, right? The company had already been infiltrated by all sorts of left-wing employees. Capitalism will sack them. Any staff that is not going to be productive, you sack the person. You don't have to waste time because he took a loan, $44 billion. You're going to be paying billions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars monthly, right? So you don't have time for anybody's even. You have to generate.
I would come back to you on those bills that you were talking about, the social media bill and all that, but we need to take a quick break and we'll be back shortly. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. If you're just joining us, you're watching Channels Beam coming to you from Channels Television, and we're looking at the drama around Twitter. And I have with me right here in the Lagos studio, Tari B, Alebia Su, as well as Ibukun Adeni and Olushola Musan, who are joining us via Zoom. So, Ibukun, just before we went on the break, you were talking about some of the legislation or, bills, that are pretty much governing how social media is being used in Nigeria. So how would you rate, because we just had the Nigerian Startup bill passed, which is now the Nigerian Startup Act. So, I mean, how would you rate the legislation around governing social media in the country?
So that's what, Nigeria has that relationship of sort of like a socialist, communist country where we have a daddy and son relationship with our president, where the president decides, based on his moral capacity, the lifestyle of the people. And if so that's the kind of relationship we have in Nigeria. So when you look at even the startup bill, it's just another bill to just give the government more power, and government can be bigger. It can work, but you must have a political system in that kind of situation that must, in fact, it has to be one of the best political systems in the world. It has to be because the moment you have a president in a place like Nigeria that, maybe does not understand, he has never done business before, business to suffer. It's the day you have a president that is immoral, morality will suffer. So but in America, even the economy is full democracy. The people have the power. Look at how they deal with crime in America. They deal with crime by giving people their life, the power to defend themselves. Second Amendment in the United States is my right to have a gun. It's my right as an American citizen. I can buy any type of weapon I want. So it is my responsibility to protect myself first before my family. That's the way. But in Nigeria, that's why you cannot have Boko Haram, because if everybody have gun in America, you can have pockets of violence, mass shooting there. Because if everybody have gun and you come to my village, everybody will kill ourselves, and that's how they solve that issue. Do you get? But in Nigeria, so that is a free society. In Nigeria, we are still in that. We don't even know what we are doing here. God is going to help us with the political structure.
Well, it's good. It's good you're bringing prayers into it. But let me just hold you there and quickly get Taribi's views, on legislation that governs the use of social media, and all of that in the country.
So I think if you look at Nigeria compared to a lot of other African countries, Nigeria actually, for the most part, has been quite, I don't want to use the word free, but has not been as restrictive as some other African nations. I think we took a few steps back when, they went ahead with the Twitter ban and, things like that do not send a positive signal around the world, because by and large, citizens should be able to speak up, and yes, sometimes people speak up and say nonsense, but they should have a voice. Everybody should have a voice. With the new startup bill, I'll be honest, I haven't dug deep into it where I can say I have a strong opinion on it. Yeah. Yes, Nigeria is a challenged country, but I don't think everything we do is bad. I don't believe everything we do is bad. We, the citizens, are also part of the problem, because we sit back, we complain, but we don't get involved. Yeah. It's easy to sit back and say, oh, they are doing this, our government, our this, our that, but what are our own individual actions in terms of contributing to make it a better place.
Well, the elections are coming, and I believe that's a starting point, for people
Absolutely.
to get involved. But Olushola, let me come to you now. So, Trump had to resort to Truth Social when he was booted off, what's it called, Twitter. Ye is about to buy Parler, and even President Buhari, his ministers and government officials had to move to Coup, a social media app called Coup, just to express themselves. So is this time for us to have an indigenous social media platform where, perhaps when you have some of this bouncing off, so you can just fall into that. Why not have yours like China has Weibo? Is this a time for us to wake up and do something in that regard?
Yeah, the real question we must ask ourselves is whether we're a communist state or whether we are, if we say we want to have social media, is it like just going to be basically built on the forces of capitalism? Just an innovative young man or woman anywhere across Nigeria decides to build something, or would we be creating it because that's what the government can regulate, and that's really what NIDA or the federal government is okay with? As a country, we have enough market. We are over 200 million people. So, and any social media that has 100 million users is definitely going to be, successful to my own view. So, whether or not it's time to create, it's really should speak to the motive. If there is some form of interest in building something that is clearly different from TikTok, different from Instagram, more unique than Twitter, serves us better, and again, all of these other platforms I talked about are gifts to the world. They're not essentially just for the countries where they were created. So if the motive is to create something that would bring, some more value and add to our GDP per capita, I'm definitely for that. If it's to be able to oppress people and create avenues to restrict people from doing what their fundamental human rights actually demands, then I definitely am not interested in it. And I do not think it will succeed as well. It's not just the United States that is being governed by capitalism. It's the rest of the free world, and the whole world will continue to move towards this because you can't, especially at the time where governments can't really take care of their people, at the point where GDP per capita is where it is. You can see what's happening to the naira, the economy. Our government doesn't shut down when it's broke. They just go on and keep borrowing, So we are, and I wanted to see from social commentating or like political comment or anything, but it's clear that people will go in the direction of what's, put food on their table, essentially create jobs and provides the ability to be able to express themselves in the way their individuality or their humanity deserves. So yes, at some point, if it's necessary and if it's different, it will just happen. The same way telcos and every other thing that's happening in Nigeria with very little input from government regulation, capitalism, and the desire for success and prosperity continues to drive the country. And the speed seems to be like what the country is comfortable with, even though that shouldn't be the ideal.
All right, very well then. I have to say thank you for joining us on the show today. Olushola Musa, co-founder at Vesti, as well as Ibukuna Adeni, co-founder at Erandla. Thanks, guys, for joining us on the show today.
A pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
Indeed. Okay. So let me also, before I let you go, let me also get your thoughts on whether or not, we should innovate locally to compete with the big social media applications that we have.
Yeah, so I definitely think that we should innovate locally. I don't think it's a one or the other where it must only be local and we leave all the international competitors out. However, it should be private sector driven and not, it shouldn't be a government initiative. Because the government has a lot of challenges. Building a new social media platform to communicate shouldn't be like top 100 in terms of their priorities.
Hey, indeed. Well, let's hope that happens. Of course, it has to be private. It's usually private sector driven. Yeah. So hopefully we'll see that in the nearest future. Perhaps you might be the one to even launch the app for us. You never can tell.
Who knows?
But I have to say thank you for joining us
Thank you, Victor.
on the show, Tarabi Alibioshu, co-founder at Q Shop.
Thank you very much.
Of course, you're welcome. Well, that's where we are. Of course, this conversation is a continuing one. Would keep tabs on it and keep following it and see how it plays out. But that's where we have to end the show today. Thank you so very much for watching. I'm Victor Matthias. Bye for now.